Hi, I'm Patricia Greenberg. My guest today is Jocelyn Jones. She's an actress, author, consultant, writer, producer, speaker, teacher, and class creator. Jocelyn has been an in-demand acting teacher for over 30 years. She's known as a secret weapon to some of the biggest stars in the industry. She's also served as a confidential creative consultant, from advising stars on which projects to choose, private coaching, rewriting, and developing future projects. Jocelyn has a new book out, aptly titled Artist, Awakening the Spirit Within, and an online course, In Class with Jocelyn Jones, a 16-episode series documenting an 8-week masterclass for working actors. Welcome, Jocelyn.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here. I love your show. I love your work.
Thank you. Thank you. You know, we originally connected through a writing class that we were taking, and I was so thrilled to meet you and get your new book, Artist, Awakening the Spirit Within, which I might add is where you won the first of 18 International Book Awards. So that's just fantastic. You know, I know it's geared towards creative, but, you know, it has applications in absolutely every aspect of our lives. So those of us outside of the entertainment industry have a perception that acting is easy and anyone can do it. And then I read your book. So I wanted to start out with, you know, there's so much to talk about, but what set the wheels in motion for you to write this?
Well, I've been teaching actors for 30 years, and my work is not your usual acting class work. I'm interested in the spiritual aspects of art and always have been. And my work is geared toward teaching artists to connect to the spirit within, to inspiration. And so all of the exercises, all of the teaching is geared toward them finding those inspirational choices for themselves in their careers and in their work. And, you know, actors create an alternate reality. And they create that alternate reality in vast detail, which is what you're responding to when you say it's so much work.
Mhm.
You know, I think everything is so much work, but if you love it, then it doesn't feel like work. So, they're creating in vast detail. And so my work starts with, where are you? You want them to create a reality that they can believe in and live in the same way that they do in their own lives. And when we see that in an artist, when we see a great performance on stage and that actor is behaving exactly like it was life, we release from our lives and we enter that story, which is the power of acting. I think this is why people put actors on pedestals. They go, oh my God. And because we release and we give up our own little petty trials and tribulations, and we enter the power of the story being executed, and created by an actor. And when the curtain comes down and we applaud, I think people they leave with this inner feeling of, my God, if they can create that much life before my very eyes, surely I could create my own a little better. And so the inspiration for the book really comes from that part of my teaching, that you want them to release into your story, and that the more you believe, the more they believe, and they join you in this alternate reality. So I want that for everyone. And I started to see these parallels, all of the questions that I deal with actors are the same questions that you can ask for your own life. The actor starts with, where am I? And then they detail that environment so that they can live behaviorally in that environment. Well, that's the same as in life. Where do you want to live? And how do you want to live? And what is the detail of the behaviors of your life in that environment? Do you want to live in LA? Do you want to live in Chicago? Do you want to live in New York? These are the decisions we make that help us to create life from our heart. This is what I want. So I'm all about connecting to that voice within.
You know, it's funny, I didn't put that together, how there's so many other aspects. You know, when reading Artist, I was absolutely riveted by how much preparation goes into playing a role and how much an actor needs to dig really deep emotionally to embrace a character. Talk to us about some of the techniques you use in teaching and how they can be applied to a more meaningful life.
Okay. Well, all of the techniques I use are are devised to help the actor to connect to this inner voice, this inspiration, this imagination. And we know when I always say the dentist doesn't have to tell you when he hits the nerve.
Right.
You respond to it. So acting and an acting technique, it's about making choices. I think every acting teacher, many acting teachers have said, talent lies in the choices you make. Well, how do you come upon those choices? You come upon those choices by asking questions. Where am I? Who am I? What do I want? Who do I love? How do I love? What are my secrets? I mean, the list goes on and
Hmm.
on and on. And I tell actors, you ask these questions, which lead to other questions, but you don't settle for the first answers. Our first answers are always logical. They're from the mind, they're from monkey mind. They're an effort to be right, you know. We want to be right. We want to be right and get the job, so auditioning puts an extra added pressure on
Right.
that.
Right.
So we want to get it right so we'll get hired. But, like many things in Zen, you need beginner's mind. You want to not know. You want to find it in the moment as you go along. So you prepare the environment, the alternate reality. Where am I? Who am I? What are the choices that I've made? You prepare that with the answers that excite you. You ask the question until something moves in you, until I always say, till your right kidney turns a little bit.
Yeah.
But you will feel it. It's visceral. And it's always kind of attached to an enthusiasm. There's a certain, oh, feeling about it. And the definition of enthusiasm is from the gods. So
Wow. Wow. It all speaks to me, but especially in chapter 5 in Artists, you discuss living in the moment and you talk about creating life moment to moment. We all need to do this. And I want to hear about how you pull that out in people.
well, one of
Because
the
nobody can
things
stay in the moment, right? Everybody's like, what's next? Am I going to get, that's a wheel that's spinning in our head that's so hard to shut off.
That's the mind.
Mhm.
That's why I talk about meditation a lot, is to really, you're not going to stop the mind. The mind has a very important role, but you can learn to differentiate between, this is my monkey mind and my chatter and my choice that's the right choice or the derivative choice. I'm trying to free people. I'm trying to free them from derivative art and derivative lives to live their own. So that monkey mind is one thing. Even when you meditate, you're recognizing the mind. And then you may get, a quarter of a second where you're just breathing.
Right.
But going back to your question about, what are the techniques? How do you do it? Life is a practice. It's what you practice. And too often we practice things in our monkey mind. We practice worry. We have these habits. So one of the strongest things, and there's a chapter in the book about it, to live in the moment, is to observe, teaching people to observe in great detail, which takes them out of themselves. You place your eyes and you look to see what you've never seen before. So, most of the time we're not in the moment because we're walking through life going, oh, I know this room. Oh, I know those trees. Oh, I know this block. Oh, I know that person. We're not looking for what we don't know. And that's very Zen. That's beginner's mind,
Mhm.
to look for what you don't know. You can't learn anything if you already know. So if you are observing, if you practice detailed observation of the most mundane things, grass growing, trees, uh, trees are not mundane, but the simple things that we think we're not interested in, and then we tune up our interest. We learn how to be interested. We learn how to discover. There's I couldn't find a definition for art that
Mm,
was satisfactory. And
mhm.
I looked, I love dictionaries. So I looked in 15, I don't know, I looked on the internet, I looked in dictionaries. I couldn't find a definition that I liked. So I created my own, which is that art is the expression of discovery, of that which you discover. If you haven't discovered something, it's going to be derivative. It's going to be like somebody else's, even if it's another version of somebody else's. But, I'm teaching people to discover, and I'm teaching them to discover by observing. So, observation and practicing and training yourself to observe in the moment, which is, again, the first exercise I do is creating an environment, and they have to observe their life in great detail. How do I cut the carrots? If I took 10 actors and I said, give me an environment, create your kitchen and make a dish. You're a cook, so you know what I'm talking about. You would see people do very interesting
Yeah,
things,
yeah.
It's there's no generic cutting of carrots. When you're cutting the carrots, everybody's going to cut them in their own way. And so when you get the actor involved and really seeing and feeling and duplicating cutting the carrots the way he observed, you know, in order to rehearse for this exercise. So they rehearse doing that and they observe themselves doing that and then they duplicate that and bring it to stage. And it's a very, very powerful exercise because it teaches you to observe the detail.
And it also brings up the idea that mom told me the only way to cut carrots is this way. And
Yes.
even at any age, you realize, that's not the only way to do this. We've all had that in
No.
our lives. You just have this belief system because somewhere in your upbringing and your molding, you were just told, I need to cut the carrots this way on this board, and that's how
Yes.
you do it.
Yes.
And
Yes.
I'd
And
imagine that if you're having a room full of people and they're looking at other people going, you're not supposed to do it that way. I've never seen that before. And then you realize there's
yeah.
a whole, that opens your mind to there's a whole wide world out
Yes.
there
Yes.
that there isn't a right or wrong. So it's
Yes.
very interesting.
And when you observe people in those life's rhythms in films or on stage, it resonates with you. You go, yes, yes, that's how life goes. Even if they're cutting carrots different, they're really cutting those carrots and their attention is into those carrots. And so we release into it because we believe it. We go, acting is not in the words, it's in the behaviors.
Yeah. Yeah. Jocelyn, you advocate for meditation and journaling, and that's a commitment most people don't want to make. I am a big writer, and I've got, fortunately or unfortunately, notebooks all over on my desk next to my bed in the car. I'm always writing down something. I don't want, I used to, the thought would jump out of my head when I got home. And I said, what was I thinking about this afternoon? And I've made it a practice to write it down. But often we start and we stop. What are some tips to keep one motivated to continue on these, what I call these self-care practices, like you say, observing, meditating, writing things down as you see it? What are some things we can do to hang on to that?
Well, I think it was Nike that came up with Do It Now.
Mhm.
And I used to tell my agent and my actors, it doesn't work for them do it now. They still have the thing that pulls them away from it. So I came up with do it anyway. Just do it anyway, because the anyway is, it's the thing that's keeping them that the anyway bypasses. They had bumper stickers made up for me, do it
Yeah.
anyway, because it sort of
Yeah.
works. And one of the things I've just discovered, because I have as much problem with this as everybody, life is a practice, so I'm still practicing it. You know, you want to get up and meditate. I want to get up and meditate right away, but really, I also want to stay in bed with my coffee and look at the news.
Yeah.
So recently, I was working with myself on that and going, what is it? What is it? Why do you stay in bed and look at the news? Why do you think you want to do that? It makes you feel terrible. I can't watch the news these days. It's like I have to tell my husband, you're going to have to tell me because I'm an empath and it's ripping me up.
Mhm, mhm.
So you do it anyway, and I started asking myself, what is going to make me feel, this is self-care. What is going to make me feel better about myself? What is going to make me respect myself more? Because what we don't realize with meditation also helps this is how much time we spend putting ourselves down.
Hmm.
Oh, you say you want to meditate, but you don't meditate. You say you want to write a book, but how many pages do you get this week? I mean, there's a whole, I mean, a lot of people have a whole continuous conversation going on, putting themselves down. But we all know when we do something that we feel is good for us, we feel better. When we exercise, we feel better. We don't want to. Nobody wants to, exercise, before they're doing it. After they do it, they go, yes, I feel great. So it's a matter of propelling yourself past the thing that's going to make you feel bad about yourself, you know.
Yeah, I think that's the key, is that when we're encouraging people to, whether it's the eating and exercising well, the self-care, the taking the initiative to do something good for you, is the prize is how you will feel afterwards. And that incentive. I also say one at a time. If you can't, I call it the power of 10. Anybody, I think,
Mhm.
can walk for 10 minutes.
Yes,
If you're, whether it's, going to the gym or writing or cooking,
yes,
you can do anything for just a few minutes. Just start by doing one little bit of it. And
absolutely.
and
Sometimes
then
it's
once you
just
start,
telling
you go,
yourself,
wow, this feels good. I'm going to keep going. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, 5 minutes of meditation is better than no minutes of meditation. 5 minutes of meditation is so powerful because it teaches you that you come out of a store, you got into an altercation with somebody at the store, you're in your car, you're all pissed off. You can take 5 minutes to breathe and that thing will dissipate. And if you do that 2, 3, 4 times, that will become an innate
Mm.
pattern within you. Walking, just, I tell myself, okay, put your shoes on and go outside and walk to the end of the block. And if you want to stop at the end of the block, you can go home. You never want to stop at the end
Yeah.
of the block.
Yeah.
I'm out. It's a beautiful day. I'm looking at the trees. I'm observing nature. You never want to stop. It's just do it anyway. It's get past, bypass that little bump in the road, which is, really, it's like dealing with addiction because we are addicted to certain negative patterns in our lives. And so using exercises like in the book or some other kind of exercises to bypass the negative addiction, the negative pattern of behavior.
So as a, observer, as an audience, I want to encourage people to don't look at the actor or actress as someone, they can do it and I can't. Let's learn from it what it takes to do that. And don't compare yourself to what I call, we're mere mortals and they seem to age differently and to live differently. This is all marketing hype. This is, so many times you may meet someone who's an idol or famous or is made a ton of movies, and you meet them and it's so different than what you thought that they would be, because you're afraid and you're intimidated and you allow yourself to feel less than around someone you don't even know.
Mhm.
Right.
Yeah. You know, it's sort of like success. What is success? I've never worked with a star who didn't have a ferocious appetite for stardom. Their
Hmm.
ambition is something that's almost unrecognizable. And
Okay.
that's what propelled them there. I've been reading a lot about Matt Perry and looking at
Hmm.
his interviews, and he was a very complicated man, but he was a very ambitious man.
Hmm.
He wanted to be a star, and he saw himself as a star. And there's a whole incredible story about how he got friends. But the takeaway from it is he saw himself in the part. And I tell actors, if you can see it, you can have it. Because if you can see yourself in it, that will detect and determine the actions that you need to take to get it. And the actions he took to get it were wild. I mean, he had obstacles and he overcame them. And but not everybody has that kind of ambition, and not everybody needs to have that kind of ambition. My father was a character actor. There's the star, and then there's everybody else in the movie.
Yes. Yes.
One man shows okay, some of them I like. I saw Alec Guinness do a Dylan on Broadway, and it blew my mind. But a lot of one-man shows not so interesting. We need a whole cast,
Yeah.
So there are different levels of success.
And I also think that that translates into, even in your own life, is that seeing yourself there, whether it's
Yes.
going for that job or putting yourself in a position where you think you're going to be happier, like we were talking earlier, seeing yourself where you want to live, making those
Yeah.
choices by observing.
Yes. But you have to honor yourself then. There's an interesting thing in the book that I finally got. I mean, I've worked on it forever. I go, is this communicating really? But it was something about the difference between fantasy and seeing it.
Mhm.
Because I was teaching so many actors that were seeing themselves in that Perry's career.
Okay. Hmm.
You know what I mean? And I was trying to teach them that's not, that's fantasy. That's not seeing yourself. You know, Madonna saw herself as a certain kind of musician, and that compelled all of her actions after that. She was moving toward this vision that she saw. Cary Grant, all of these Charlie Chaplin, they all had this very strong image, and then they went about making that happen with their actions. So you can't project yourself into, I want a career, I want to work, actors
Yeah.
say, I want to work with all the best directors and all the best parts. Uh-huh. Okay, good. What do you, in what way? How do you see yourself in those? And what specifically? You have to be specific with what you want. And then seeing yourself there is a way of honoring yourself. It's a way of saying, I deserve this. I see it. It's of my imagination. I'm creating this in my imagination. And I can't talk a lot about who I worked for, but
Right.
there was one person I worked for was very high, very very high up on the food chain, and I saw myself working for that person because
Okay.
I thought nobody else is going to be able to do that. You know what I mean? I knew how to
Yeah.
do it.
Yeah.
And then I went about it. I looked at everything they'd ever worked on, every single film. I looked at every interview. I looked at all the things. And then, at the first meeting, it was about, and I knew they hated acting teachers.
Oh,
I said, I'm not going to teach you to act. You don't need to learn to act. Look at your career, look at your success. What I can do is offer you choices that you can adapt. I can save you time by saying, here's the scene, here's any number of things that you can do in the scene. Which one indicates to you, oh, you like this one? Okay, good. Let's research that. Let's see. And I would pull research that was really exciting
yeah.
for them because I'd already seen what indicated to them.
In chapter 8, I read the whole book cover to cover, absolutely loved it. Can't say enough
Thank
about it.
you. Thank
Um,
you.
Find you and let the rest go, chapter 8. So talk to us about this, especially how you needed to do this at a very young age, because Jocelyn's weaved in her, like you said, it's a part memoir, part instructive, part self-help, but it's an open book, literally and figuratively, of how you can really bring your life into being who you are authentically. That's what I love about it so much.
Thank
So
you.
finding you, letting the rest go. Most of us reach the point of the art of not giving an F or not caring about what people think at a much older age.
Mhm.
So maybe we can help some people get to that sooner.
Well, yeah, it is about honoring yourself, but, when you're young, you might not do that with the same wisdom that you do
Right.
when you're
Right.
older, because
Absolutely.
you're run
Absolutely.
by hormones and all kinds of other things. But, I had a difficult time in school, and, I have a difficult time with teachers. And one of the reasons that I wove the memoir into the book was I didn't want to come from on high. I didn't want to write another acting book. There are a lot of acting books. And I wanted the vulnerability of your teacher as a person. They've made mistakes, they've learned what they've learned through circumstances in their lives. So I sort of picked these moments in my life that taught me uh, what I thought were the important lessons that I then fashioned into lessons for actors later on, and then now through the book fashioning those lessons for anyone to receive and create their own life. But that had to do with a very difficult time in my life where I was quitting high school, and my father was incredibly disappointed. And for the first time, he asked me this really, really important question. And I could write a whole book on just this question, which is, he said, Jossie, that's my nickname from childhood. If you could have anything in the world, barring all obstacle, what would it be? And my world cracked open. I mean, the first thing that came to mind, just like I say, you have to ask questions, you have to ask
Yes.
them until they move in you. The first thing was very snotty teenage, well, I want to quit school and I want to have my own life and I want to work and I want to, do all these things. But I use that as a guidance through my life. Is this something I really want to be doing? Is there something else I feel I should be doing? And I would ask those questions until something moved in me and a light went off and I went, yes, move in that direction, move in that direction. So that's really, I had to let go of his disappointment that I was quitting school, what everyone was going to think. I have a certain group of people who knew me and as a teenager, a rebellious teenager who, would say, "Oh, Jossie, pretty but not so bright." Um, and by the way, those people didn't read the book. I thought these are people who've known me from childhood. When your
Right.
childhood friend writes a book, don't you read it?
Right.
Whatever.
Right.
Anyway, but we don't, you release that, you let that go.
Yes.
There's a lot of things you got to
Mhm.
let go. So you let go of other people's opinions. And, the other thing I have to say that allowed me to do that is that from a very young age, I took my counsel from nature. My mother was a gardener and she made these extraordinary gardens that evolved throughout the seasons. And, by fall, they were eye high, they were extraordinary. And I was taken with the variety in the garden. And then after the garden, I'd go to the woods because we lived near the woods. And I would go to the woods and all of the trees, I knew all of the trees, and they were all my friends. And I would converse with them. Some of them were good for taking a nap with,
Mhm.
some of them were good for crying under, but I would take counsel for them. I swear I could ask them questions and hear. And then I lived on the Palisades along the Hudson River. And those rocks are millions of years old and they get hot, in the sun. And they're very good for basking on like a lizard and
Mhm.
soaking up those mineral messages. So in that way, I tried to put that spirituality in the book because even if, talking to trees or communing with nature is a little wacky to you, it will reverberate somewhere in you because nature is the greatest teacher. If we just looked at the variety that nature has to offer us in plants, vegetable, mineral, and animal, look at the variety. We would
Absolutely.
go, oh, it's a richness. It's not, I want you to be more like me. It's like, how can we honor our differences? And you look at a garden and there are all those beautiful flowers living in community with one another, the same with the woods. And, people get like rocks, really? I go, yeah, they're really old. They're just sitting there soaking up vibration, they've got a lot to say. And I think the most important thing is if you believe in that, if you admire everything on the planet loves admiration. And if you admire a tree, I mean, just think that that tree has been standing there unrecognized for how long. And when you admire that tree, I swear to God, the breeze will come up and her
Mhm.
waves or
Mhm. Mhm.
we'll start communing back to you.
Well,
So
it's well documented now that we know more and more researching this for really at any age, but specifically as you get older, is that walking in nature
yeah,
has a magnificent effect on every aspect of your body.
Yes.
There's actually compounds in the trees that are released that enhance your cognitive abilities. Just standing up, keeping the body upright, opens your body up to what
Yes.
nature has to offer. It does
Yes.
sound a little woo-woo and out there to talk to trees or to talk to your plants, but I spoke to a horticultural therapist. It's a new specialty within
Yeah.
social work and physical and recreational therapy, is they're getting people to work with nature and garden as a way to heal. So there is,
Yes.
yeah, you're ahead of your time on that one, because we're really finding that and even one of the gentlemen there told me to name your plants. So if you have plants around the house, I don't have such a green thumb, but I'm learning to take that on, is, I have basil in the kitchen, so I named her Bella the basil plant. And they said, you actually, like you're saying, develop a relationship with the plant,
Yes.
and it thrives more. It feeds you and you feed it. And
Yes.
so it's very interesting you're saying that.
It's joyous. It's joyous. I think the Japanese call it bathing of some kind,
Yes,
forest
forest
bathing. They
bathing.
call it forest bathing.
Forest bathing,
And
yes.
it's very, very powerful. I mean, if you've ever walked through the redwoods up in Yosemite, if you've never felt a spiritual impulse in your life, you can't walk through those trees and not feel a spiritual impulse. I mean, it's just like, oh my God, it's holy. For me, it's like a cathedral, you know.
Yeah, we stayed in a cabin in the woods in the 31-mile Avenue of the Giants up in Redwood, in the Redwoods. And it was just, I mean, we felt like new people when we got out of there.
Yes,
Same
yes.
with Big Sur. We stayed a weekend at Big Sur and just went walking around the bluffs and the rocks and the trees. And it was so therapeutic. You don't even have to, it's a destination, but you don't even have to go for the food and the shopping and the whatever. Just go and stay in the woods for a couple of days, and that'll be one of the best vacations you take. It's such a renewal. So Jocelyn, let's get back to the nuts and bolts of acting. And I'm honing in on this is because, again, how much of a successful career in acting is attributed to talent?
I
know it's a
probably be
loaded question.
unpopular. Not much. Not much, really. Talent is lovely, but you can learn to act. I've taught wood to act because they had desire. They had desire. So there's desire, which is very important in life, and there's ambition. And the people that you see who are stars, for whatever reason, they have an ambition that most of us have not experienced, really. So, successful actor, there are different kinds of success. There's that level of success, but that shouldn't invalidate all the other levels of success.
Of course.
So,
Yeah.
I've had 50, 60 people come to acting, 50, 60, 70 years old. And, they get some lines on a TV show, and they have their own dressing room, and they have to rehearse, and they're excited and they're nervous, and they go and they work with this actor that they admire, and they feel tremendous success, and that has to be honored more. The all the different levels of the first job, the second job. I talk to my actors about, first it's a line or two, and it's under 5, and then it's a scene, and then it's a co-star, and then it's a recurring, and then it's a star. And you have to enjoy you have to celebrate each level of success. It's terribly important.
I love what you're saying about the ambition. And again, it's that I hope it's giving listeners the impetus to something that you really want to go after, to explore it. You may never get there, and you may find out it's not for you, whether it's acting or running or skiing or writing a book or painting. Just explore it.
Exactly.
Right?
And
Take that
celebrate the
initiative
wins
to
along the way. I mean, you
exactly.
don't have to,
Exactly.
you may think you have the ambition to run a 26, however many marathons you've
It's
run marathons.
26.2. Yes.
I mean, 26.2 miles is a lot of miles,
Yeah.
but, celebrate your 5K. And you
Absolutely.
may find, I don't have the ambition to do 26.2 miles. I don't have that ambition. You had that ambition, I'm trying to walk 5 miles a day. I couldn't run 5 miles a day. My body's not built for that.
Right.
Pilates I do, 5 times a week because I just love it because I was a dancer, and it's working out all those
Yeah.
things that I worked out as a dancer. So you have to honor, your own. You have to honor and calibrate your ambition to your successes, and allow them to come together and say, that's okay. That's good. I love that, you know?
You recently released In Class with Jocelyn Jones, a 16-episode series masterclass for working actors, which Jocelyn was so generous to let me sit in on one. I looked at all the previews. They're amazing. But what stood out for me was you said to your students, I love this, people look up to you as an artist, and that talent is not the gift, but the sensitivity and the higher vibration that the artist has to express themselves. How can we hone these sensitivity skills in work and in life?
Well, here's the thing about that quote that I want to just clean up a little bit. Um, Actors hate it when I say you are not your talent because they're all about I'm my talent and I have to honor my talent and I have to do this with my talent, my talent. And I say to them, I'm going to tell you something very unpopular, but I don't think you are your talent. I think your talent has to do with your sensitivity level. So we are now catching up to the fact that everything, trees and plants and actors and people and everyone operates on different vibrational levels, frequencies, they're frequencies. And artists operate on a very high frequency naturally, and they're very sensitive. Their sensitivity means they're operating at a very high frequency. And I wrote the book because I want to be able to raise people's frequencies, to raise their vibrations so that they can connect to, I say, the spirit inside. But the spirit inside is connecting to when you're vibrating it at that level, you can pull impulse out of the ether, out of the ethos, out of the air around you that longs to be expressed in this reality that we are living, you know, to guide us toward our own evolution. So it is there waiting for us. One of the reasons I talk about meditation is air. Air is spiritual. You are breathing in, breathe in. I breathe in. I know that I am breathing in. Air is outside of you. It is collective of the entire ethos. So you're bringing that in. If you're sensitive to it, if your vibrational level is such that I want to pull from that breath what it has to offer me, that's when the artist gets inspiration, they get hits. You go to Florence, you look at Michelangelo's David, and you go, a human being created this. This
Right.
is the nature of humanity. And he didn't, I think most people know about Michelangelo. He saw, we've been talking about seeing, he saw the David in the stone, and he took away that which did not belong to what he saw, which is an awfully good way to move forward in life.
It's such a wonderful, wonderful analogy for everything in life is that you're
Mhm.
removing what doesn't
Yes.
work for you as opposed to
What?
fighting it, right? Fighting,
Yes.
cutting away because
Yeah.
you can't get
Yeah.
at what it is you take the vision and get everything out of the way that doesn't serve the vision.
Exactly. Exactly.
And it's not
So that
selfish. Can I reiterate that how many times? It is not selfish to chase your dreams, to follow your vision. And Jocelyn, it's haunting, right? When you have a vision and you want it haunts you, literally. And I
yeah.
don't mean that in a creepy sense. It's just there all the time.
Well, if it's really connected to the spirit within, if you're connected up, it's going to haunt you because it's your purpose. That's the purpose of that frequency. That's the purpose of plucking that impulse out of the sky. So you see certain things that actors do. You go, oh my God, how did he think of that? It's not. Um, it's not the usual actions that you would see. It's something really unusual. How they thought of it, and when they thought of it, I guarantee you they went, "Oh, that's something. I'm going to do that. I'm going to try that."
Now, you grew up, Jocelyn, in an entertainment industry family. Your father was Henry Jones, most notably as a favored actor of Alfred Hitchcock. So, why did you choose acting, or did it choose you? I'm curious if it was just in the bones, in the Jones bones.
No, I really tried to not be an actor. I think
Uh-huh.
I would say, I guess it chose me. It chose, somebody sent me on an audition, and I booked it. And so I thought, oh dear, but I
Mhm.
really did try not to do it. And I kept getting parts. And the thing was, I understood it. I got it for some weird reason. I understood the process, and I loved the process. When I did work and I was picked for work and somebody gave me a job, I really enjoyed it, but I did not enjoy the lifestyle.
Mhm.
But I knew I had an uncanny ability to take it apart. I was like puzzles in my life. And I rainy days I would just do puzzles all day long and leave them out and say, oh, look at that. So to me, it was like a puzzle. How do you how do you work this puzzle of inspiration? How do you make it? It sounds a little lofty, but how do you make it inspirational? So I understood the process right away. And I just, you know, and people also came to me to teach. I mean, it was
Mhm.
really weird. And some very well-known actors came to me and said, you have to, are you going to come into your class? And I go, no, you can't come into my class. My class is really dedicated. People are rehearsing 40 hours to do a scene. You know what I mean? You're not going to rehearse in an acting class for 40 hours to put up a scene. You'll be on another page, and plus fact, you don't need a teacher. You're doing brilliantly.
Mhm.
You need to sit down and write down everything you're doing right, so that you can see that you keep repeating that over and over and over, and that is your successful Tao, so to speak, your successful way of operating.
Jocelyn, your parents made you. Their behaviors, good and bad, molded you. So, what is your takeaway from childhood that now looking back was a positive force in your life?
That's, we've talked about, it's nature. I was so blessed to receive what I did in those gardens. People had dollhouse. I asked for a dollhouse every year since the time I was 3 to, I don't know.
Yeah.
Um, and I have a little dollhouse in New York, a little dollhouse apartment. My apartment is like my dollhouse. But I made dollhouses in the gardens, but I would use, and then there were those fairy books we read as a
Yes, sure.
child. And
Yeah.
so, and I would take the petals and make them beds and, just create these little other realities in the garden. I got so much joy out of my life in nature, in the garden, in the trees, and on the cliffs overlooking the Hudson, on the river, just the banks of the river sloshing, that gorgeous sound of a river hitting a beach. That's where I took my counsel, is from nature. And I feel very blessed. And if I had another life, if I was starting this life, I would be doing it in education. I would be
Mhm.
teaching. I think if we taught people to think for themselves, to meditate from a young age, to observe, to write down their observations, if we taught these things, we would have quite a different, society. Instead, we have people in just extreme derivative, social media. It has to look like this, and I
Right.
have to have this. I have to have the handbag, or I have to look like Kim Kardashian. I have
Right.
to look like this one. It's the opposite.
Yeah. I hope people are coming to that reality now. Jocelyn, you've been an actress, a teacher, and a coach for, dare I say, 50 years. Let's talk about
Wow.
ageism in Hollywood. We both have so many mutual friends and professional colleagues that are all devoted to making life better for us as we age. You know, it was always, do you see it getting better for the over 50, 40, 50 and beyond?
Well, if they
I'll tell you
want
why
it
I
to
ask this.
be.
I ask this because there's a part of me that says you can become a successful actor at any age, and yet there's so much ageism. So, what do you see happening in all the genres, TV, film, theater? Is it an either or? Is it, yeah, I don't think you're going to get a job because you turn 50, or, oh, there's a part for somebody 50 and over. We'll try to fit you into that. Or is the industry starting to make films and theater and series that actually feature older people?
You know, the industry is going to make what sells. So currently cartoons sell. So we have cartoon movies, you know. Uh, s- so unfortunately, no, I don't think, even though we are moving into a time where we have more people over 50, way, way more people you would think. But, you know, I'm not sure people over 50 are so interested in the movies as we used to be on Go
Mhm.
every Saturday. So, you know, I would say this, that you can become anything you want at any age. There is no limitation there. The limitation comes about when you start thinking like, well, you know, I'm 60 and I want to be Meryl Streep. That's not going to happen.
Mhm.
You know, I'm 55, but I'm in shape and I want to be an action hero like Tom Cruise. That's not going to happen. But if you're 55 and you want to become an actor, you can learn how to act and you can join a class and you can create that for yourself. You know, you may not have the starring role. So that's when I talk about you have to kind of align your ambitions with, you know, your success. You have to, this is success for me. It's okay for me. Wow, I got a job. I'm going to do, you know, and I have students that were great with that. You know, I got a booked a job on whatever television show. And they were thrilled, and it was 5 lines, you know, and other students would look down at them like, well, no, it's not much of a job. But they were thrilled, and it was a
Absolutely.
landmark for them in their career. And, you know, that's all part of letting go of this kind of wildly judgmental society that we have. I'm not going to be judged by somebody else who's doing better. I'm going to be my own judge and say this was a big win, and I'm happy, and it takes me another step along my journey. And you know, that's terribly, terribly important.
Those are such encouraging words.
You know.
Jocelyn, I want to thank you so, so much for joining us. For more information about Jocelyn's book, Artist, right here, I'm going to show it again, Awakening the Spirit Within. Love it so much. And her
Mhm.
acting series, her online series, go to jocelynjonesstudio.com, JocelynJonesStudio. Studio. And in closing, I want to ask you, what do you like about getting older?
Well, it's freeing, you know? I think it was Matthew Perry. I think it was in this Matthew Perry research that he was talking about teen years, not seniors, but teen years.
Mhm.
And he was saying, you know, he's so funny. He was saying, you know, as a teenager, you know, you have everything you wanted as a teen. I got my own wheels, I got my own pad, I eat when I want, I do what I want. All those things you dreamed of as a teen, you now have.
Mhm.
So it's really about, what do you want to do? What do you want to do at that time? You can do anything you want. You know, I want to teach others how to create their life as their own personal masterpiece. If I can do that for a while, you know, that's my last chapter. I mean, teaching people to create their life as their own masterpiece, finding that artist within, because there's an artist in everyone. It just makes life more yours,
Yeah.
you know? So I think it's defining, you know, what is it that you want to do? You know, barring all obstacles, what is it you want to do until your heart beats a little faster? And then start taking the steps and the actions toward making that happen.
Such beautiful advice and such a wonderful, wonderful conversation. Thank you, Jocelyn Jones, so
Thank
much.
you. I
And thank you
enjoyed it
all for
very much,
listening.
Patricia.
Please tune in again for our engaging discussions on all things aging well. And for feedback and topic requests, you can contact us at www.patriciagreenberg.com. Thank you again.
Thank you.